I'm Oscar.
I'm George.
And this is the S.O.U.N.D Project. So today we're going to be talking about breaking into a career in acoustics. And so George and I are going to be talking about that. George, we profiled you on an earlier episode.
Yeah.
But George is going to be joining us in June, I think.
June.
As what's your role going to be?
Acoustic consultant and also sales coordinator.
Nice. So just doing a bit of both on the business end and on the consulting engineering side of things.
Yes.
Nice. But yeah, and so he used to be an intern here, so he's got, good track record so far for breaking into a career in acoustics.
Yeah.
I managed to make my way here as well, so we're kind of just going to be comparing experiences, talking about how we ended up here and how, what advice we have for other people who might be interested in a career in acoustics. Mm-hmm. So when did you kind of become aware of acoustics? You were doing engineering originally, right? Like civil engineering, I think?
Yeah, I was in civil engineering. My dad owns a construction company, and so whenever I decided to go into engineering, that just seemed like the most reasonable choice. But being someone that is so involved with music and someone that loves music, I really wanted to find the balance between those two, if that did exist. And so I went to a professor and kind of asked him hey, do you know of any intersection of those two fields? And he told me about acoustic engineering. And I think, that's one good point is that a lot of people don't even know it exists. So the first step, honestly, in becoming an acoustic engineer is finding out that the field exists. So if you're watching this, you're off to a good start. Right.
Which so many people, don't know that it exists. And I think there are people that would enjoy it that don't know that it exists. And so there's a lot of I had a professor who, because I did multidisciplinary engineering at Purdue, and the advice that she gave us was to always keep the pursuit of passion alive, of not just have what you're passionate about, but search for what you're passionate about. Because there's always ways of finding the things that you're passionate about, or growing deeper into the things that you're passionate about. And so I kind of keep that curiosity alive.
Absolutely.
But yeah. And so an advisor kind of helped you find that?
It was a professor that I had that I was taking a class at the time it was just a random civil engineering class called Numerical and Computer Tools. And he's a really cool professor. I wasn't super interested in the class just because I wasn't that interested in civil engineering. But so he told me about acoustic engineering, which led me to doing a lot of research in the field and actually reaching out to 3 or 4 acoustic engineers that were in Florida. And they kind of gave me the rundown of what you needed to do to get into the field, which was very, it wasn't cut and dry, which is a big part of this. This field is not something, it's not like a aerospace or civil engineering field where there's just tons of companies and everyone knows about it. It's pretty niche. So being able to talk to engineers that are in the field is a huge first step.
Yeah. And it's each kind of type of acoustical engineering or, sound adjacent engineering job, or audio related job is pretty niche, but then there's such a wide diversity in those types of jobs of I don't know what kind of companies you were talking with, but when I was in when I was at Purdue and I was looking at different internships or different roads to go down, there was you could get into product design for manufacturing speakers or manufacturing audio components, or you could get into sound system and AV integration, or you could go down, completely other paths into, audiology or kind of more psychoacoustics, or going into underwater acoustics and architectural acoustics. And so there's such a wide diversity of the types of, environments of getting into into sound related fields. But I was always really into architectural acoustics. And so I was able to find a few companies and things like that did that, and that I was able to kind of explore more.
Yeah. So I had just talked to architectural acoustics at first. I later realized the wide range of different jobs that you can go into in acoustics, like you were just mentioning. And that's really important to know, honestly. There's so many things you can do in acoustics that it's really worthwhile to do some research on what jobs are really out there.
Right.
Because there's really so many. I did want to mention, I forgot to actually mention this in the podcast that was sort of like the Meet the Team about me. But one thing that led me to this company is I was actually listening to a podcast called The Ides of Engineering. And you were on the podcast. And so you were talking about this crazy company that you worked for. That's like, you're like, wow, it's like this amazing company. And we do really cool studio work and stuff. And I was like, man, that sounds cool. So that's why I looked up Haverstick Designs in the first place, which is it's pretty cool.
That's cool. That's cool to hear. Because that was the podcast that me and my classmate Zach, we kind of started as like it was the majors podcast for like our multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary engineering.
Okay.
So that's what IDES is interdisciplinary engineering studies, IDES.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And so it was covering a lot of different aspects of multidisciplinary engineering, like not just acoustics, but it was like a lot of it was talking about like that pursuit of passion of why people chose those majors or chose those concentrations within multidisciplinary engineering. And yeah, that's cool. And like, and a lot of those resources and things like that are online, and it's kind of like taking your curiosity and kind of exploring those. Cause like that podcast was not like a popular podcast.
No.
It has like 15 views and you were apparently one of them.
Yeah. No, it's super crazy. I mean, but it really speaks to like how much you have to be a self-starter when you're getting involved with this. There is a lot of resources online whenever you search for them. So doing a lot of research up front and figuring out, what companies are out there. Maybe even asking like certain people like, hey, what do you think about this company? I was close to working for a few different acoustic engineers, which I'm glad now, not only that because this place is so great, but also I've heard a few things that are like less than great about them. So I feel like having that market knowledge of hey, one, is this the field I want to go into? Are these the topics I want to cover? But two, like, how is this company culture? Right. That's really important too.
Oh yeah. And so I guess maybe like rewinding a little bit into like when you first learned about acoustics.
Yeah.
Was your first search kind of like what kind of internships could I be looking for and just trying to find jobs like of different companies that you could potentially be working for?
Yeah. I would say my first thing was literally just reaching out to acousticians to say, hey, do you have any time to talk to me and kind of tell me about what it takes to break into this field? And so I probably talked to 2 or 3, all architectural. And the first thing that they told me was, you're going to probably want to change your major from civil to mechanical. There aren't a ton of colleges in the U.S. that do a specific acoustical engineering degree. I think you went to one of them.
Yeah. Well, Purdue has a multidisciplinary engineering undergraduate that you can get a concentration in acoustical engineering.
Okay.
So, and that's what I did. But it's a pretty, it produces a lot of acoustical consultants and people in the field of acoustics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Penn State might have one.
Penn State's a pretty big one. Columbia's a big one.
Okay.
RPI has a really good architectural engineering or architectural acoustics program.
Yeah.
I want to say Kansas is a good one as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there are a few programs out there and they're becoming more and more common just because it seems like the need is growing more. But a lot of times, you're starting in a adjacently related field, say like some kind of technical knowledge is always really, really helpful. Like, some kind of STEM related field can help, but there are acquisitions that come from music degrees or,
That's true.
Music technology is what Alex and Ryan did from our team. And so there's a lot of different ways of getting to it. Having some kind of technical background is always really helpful so that you can attach it to this kind of musical application in our case.
Yeah, it's a good point because I think at first I was kind of scared because I was like, well, I don't have a degree in anything close to this, so how am I going to get in? But like I said, the acousticians that I talked to mentioned that a lot of them have mechanical engineering degrees. And like you were saying, there's a lot of degrees that people also use to get in. So having any skill that can kind of allow you to start to contribute right away is big. And so like I would also say like having any sort of experience with AutoCAD is big. Like any CAD design is going to help you a lot.
Yeah. And yeah, and I don't know what school did you go to, or are you in?
So I'm currently finishing my last semester at the University of South Florida.
Okay. And yeah, and I don't know how South Florida is kind of set up, but there was a lot of different avenues. Like mechanical engineering at Purdue had a master's program that was specialized in mechanical noise control, right? And industrial noise control. And then it also has like the MD program that goes to acoustics. And so there's a lot of ways of, kind of doing like a similar track.
Yeah.
Like a adjacent program, but then gearing it towards that. A lot of people do aerospace for like aeronautical noise control and things like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The vibrations, I'm taking a vibrations course right now that's mandated. Like you have to take that as a part of mechanical engineering. Mm-hmm. And that is great for going over the foundational concepts of vibration. So that's really good. Like maybe if you have that as an elective, you can take that. I'm also doing something really cool right now that I'm really grateful that USF and my professor signed off on, which is I'm doing an independent study. So I'm getting credit hours for going over the Master Handbook of Acoustics and Recording Studio Design. Those are two big books in learning about acoustics. So that's an example of something you can do to kind of tailor your degree towards acoustics.
Yeah, and there's a lot of kind of like you were talking earlier about a lot of times you need to kind of have that self-starter attitude, kind of entrepreneurship attitude a little bit in the field. A lot of times you have to kind of like go out and find those academic paths that can help gear you towards a career in acoustics. Like at Purdue, my senior design project I did through a program called EPICS, which is I believe engineering partnerships in the community. Cool. It might be engineering projects in the community, but it's basically when students pair with an organization, like a real world organization, and do a design project for them. And something that we learned through like kind of just our teachers and our advisors and things was that very occasionally, there's an acoustically related project. And then they usually look for acoustical engineering students to do them. But those projects are not very common. They're, kind of rare. And the stars don't always align. Yeah. But so I remember me and my classmate, we were emailing our advisor, stopping by our advisor's, office every other week or something like that, saying like, if a project ever comes up, like let us know. Or like, has a project come up yet? Like our senior design's coming up, we're really wanting to. And so we kind of just stayed on it of asking her. And so then when it popped up, we just happened to be checking in with her, and she was like, actually just yesterday, this project got posted. If you can sign up before anybody else does, then you could make that your senior design project. And so we ended up getting to pair with a local church that was wanting to renovate their fellowship hall and needed acoustical design for it. Yeah. And so we ended up getting to work on that.
Nice.
And so like the independent study route, there are ways of finding that. Or I've had classmates that managed to find some like research opportunities with labs that were doing acoustically related projects at Purdue, but don't usually take undergrads, but then just kind of by being a pest and sending emails and asking to meet, even if it's not for a job, but just to talk about their work because they're interesting. One thing leads to another, and they're able to find some work or find a role or something to do.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, you should never underestimate the value of just talking to people, like having a conversation, because like there's so much that I would have never found out if I didn't just ask first. And whenever I was first asking a question, I had no idea what I was even going to get back. It was just about starting the conversation and then just seeing what you find. I feel like a lot of acoustic engineers are actually nice people that they want to share their knowledge.
Yeah, and they're passionate about what they do. And so people love talking about what they're passionate about. And it's exciting to find other people that are passionate about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we get lots of emails and requests from parents and students that are like, my kid's like really good at music or really loves music, but is also really good at math and science. And we've been thinking about a career in acoustics. Like, could we meet for like a half hour to chat about it? And I always love those phone calls because it's low pressure. It's just somebody who's excited and helping kind of stoke that passion. And so, like kind of having like that, getting over that fear of reaching out to people or thinking like, is this weird? Am I going to be a pest? Like people really don't get upset about it. No. If they're too busy to meet, they won't meet with you immediately. But people are generally excited to talk about what they're doing, and it's, you know, flattery.
Yeah, I think so. I think the worst thing that you could get would be like a no reply. No one's ever going to send anything back to you like, I can't believe you reached out to me.
Right.
How dare you?
Right.
You know, like, so, and if you just talk to enough people and send out enough emails or calls, you're going to get a few people that are willing to talk to you. And chances are they're going to have some information for you that's really going to help.
Yeah.
And like, for me, it worked out really great here because I reached out to Gavin. Gavin got back to me, and we had like an hour conversation. It actually was scheduled for an hour, and he went like an hour and 20 minutes, which is pretty amazing. But at the end of the call, he mentioned, you know, we have an internship program if you're interested in that. And of course I was like, absolutely. But you know, that's another good point, is that internships are really big for getting into the field. If you can secure one of those, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah. And the internships aren't always super obvious where to find an internship. It's becoming a bit more and more, you know, the industry is becoming a bit more organized. There are organizations like the National Council of Acoustical Consultants, where it's an association of different businesses, different acoustical consulting businesses. And it's kind of like a nice collective knowledge center for acoustical consultants. And there's a job board on there.
Yes.
And more companies are adding internships to that board. And, you know, there's a program with like the Acoustical Society of America called SOURIA, which is, I believe it's Scholarship for Underrepresented Internships and Experimental Programs in Acoustics, something like that.
Sounds right.
But it's basically sponsoring opportunities for underrepresented students to participate in internships and research opportunities.
Okay. Yeah.
And so
awesome.
like NCAC participates with that, and it kind of covers the funds for I forget how many students, but a big group of students to do internships in the real field, in the real world. And so there are like a few organizations like the ASA, like NCAC, that are helping foster those programs. And those are both really great resources to look at when you're like looking for reputable companies, or like, legitimate companies to work for, good companies to work for. But a lot of times companies aren't, posting about their internship programs or what opportunities they might have available, or they might not be creating an internship program until the right person comes along, or until somebody asks if they can do an internship, and then they figure out something to work. Yeah. Some way to work with them.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I want to say that NCAC has a directory of their acoustical consultants. And so that might be a great place to go and just look up companies, get their contact information, and just send them an email about like, hey, do you need any, or do you anticipate any need for this?
Yeah, that's exactly how I got my internship. I found NCAC. I think it was listed on one of Purdue's websites about acoustical engineering. And yeah, I went on their job directory, and they were the only company in Indiana. They were the only acoustical consulting firm in NCAC in Indiana. And when I looked up his address, it was 10 minutes away from my parents' house at the time.
Nice.
And so I looked on the company, on the website. I saw it was a recording studio design. That was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to design recording studios, and I wasn't very interested in, the AV side of things, of integrating the studio, of pulling cables and things. I wanted to be doing the architectural design for the space, and it worked really perfectly. And so, I did a lot of research on the company, got excited about it, and then I wrote a cover letter to Gavin that I emailed him, and I was just really excited about it. And he was nice enough to say, like, well, would you want to meet up during your winter break, spring break, one of those? And we met up and just, hit it off. And he was like really generous with his time, really excited to talk with somebody who was, a young person who was excited to learn and participate in the program. And it kind of just went from there, and I was able to intern and then eventually work here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so but that, that applies to all 50 states.
That's true.
There's tons of there's more acoustical consulting firms in most other states. Most other states have a few different ones to look at. Yeah. And so, all the companies in NCAC, they go through a vetting program. Typically they, I think, are required to have associations with other audio/acoustics and noise control related organizations. Okay. So they're all really great engineering companies that are really great to work with.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have another episode about kind of affiliate programs, or affiliate organizations, like the NCAC, ASA, the Institute of Noise Control Engineers, that kind of stuff. But NCAC is a really great, learning or place to learn about the industry.
Yeah.
And they recently created the early career board, or the early career liaison position, which I was the first. I'm right now I'm serving as the early career board liaison for NCAC.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so we're trying to find ways to work with young consultants, but then also to get students more involved in the industry of NCAC or of acoustical consulting.
That's
and so,
cool.
There's a big push right now in the industry to reach out to more young people, because we're aware that there are a lot of students and people that are interested in engineering and interested in STEM that would thrive and do really well in the acoustical world, but aren't maybe didn't have the resources to find, or weren't lucky enough to have an advisor who was aware of it.
Absolutely. It's just always surprising to me because it's so exciting to me, and I feel like there's a lot of people out there that would be equally as excited. They just don't know about it yet. So yeah, I think a program that is educating people and spreading the word that this career exists is a great idea.
Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting. Like you say, some people wouldn't love this job, and it is kind of like a unique situation of wanting to marry your passion for music or sound with engineering or, technical analytical skills. And then also for it to align with architectural acoustics, because that's kind of its own niche in and of itself, where most of my classmates in acoustical engineering at Purdue were huge gearheads and wanted to design speakers and design sound systems and things like that.
Yeah.
I was always just obsessed with the walls. I don't know why. I was obsessed with the room, with the idea of the room, and that it was like this mysterious thing that the room could make the speakers sound better, and that if the room wasn't right, the speakers didn't sound good, that your $10,000 sound system just wouldn't work right, that it wouldn't be a way of telling it from, a $500 sound system. That was mind-boggling to me, and I thought that was so cool. Yeah. And so I think there is like that. There's kind of like what we keep coming back to is like that pursuit of passion of if that excites you, if that's something that strikes that chord with you. Chasing that,
Yeah, chasing it. And not settling, there's so many opportunities out there in the world, honestly, that you just aren't going to know about until you really, really look, and really, really reach out to people. If you have the determination to do it, and you have the skills to write a decent email, honestly, and just don't be afraid to show that you're passionate about something, I think there's no limit to what you can achieve.
Yeah.
You just have to stay on it and not settle.
Yeah. And it's such a fulfilling thing to find your place in it, because you kind of feel, it's not like it's a pipe dream to pursue a career in acoustics, but you feel kind of different, where it's,
Definitely.
Not everybody in your class is having the same goals. It has the same career goals as you. And you feel like, all right, there's something very specific that I want to do and I want to get into it. But then once you're kind of able to find it, it's really fulfilling, and it's awesome being surrounded by people that are getting that same kind of fulfillment. That's been one of the coolest things being involved with NCAC, is like when I go to the annual meeting, I'm just surrounded by so many people who are so excited about the walls, that are so excited about the rooms, and that are like, we went on the last one in Raleigh, North Carolina, we went to a symphony performance, and we got to take a tour of the venue before, and everybody was just looking around of like, oh, what's going on with that cloud? Like, how's this wall angled? Is like, how low is the balcony face? How is that impacting the sound? How does the sound different under the balcony versus, in the main space? How low is the pit? Like, what are the sight lines like from the balcony? Where are the fill speakers? All these things that, I'm always looking at in every room, and people are, I feel like I'm a bit of a weirdo. Like my girlfriend's like looking at me like, why do you care about any of this? But it's so exciting getting to talk with people about it and making that, that gets to be my job every day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely incredible to me to find this group of people that works at this company, because I never thought frankly, that I would find them. I thought I was going to be working with people that I would constantly have to explain my entire background. You know, like it's like as I was in the civil engineering degree, it was all like each person that I would meet, I would have to say the whole rundown of like, yeah, this is my degree. I'm also super into music. Like that's kind of like my real, like that's what I want to really get into. And like there was always this like super long explanation I would have to give for like what I want to do with my life. And then I got here and then it was like everybody was doing the same thing. And so it didn't take any time at all. I was like, hey, I'm George and I'm here to be an acoustic engineer. I also love making music. I love playing music. And everyone else is like, yeah, same. So
yeah,
it was a really quick bonding, honestly.
Yeah, and there's some kind of, I don't know, personality type with it of that there's like this thing that we're really passionate about. You know, there's this passion that we have that it needs to be scratched. Like, you know,
Yes.
like that itch needs to be scratched. Where I feel like a lot of, you know, not there's anything wrong with other, you know, career
No, not at
paths or
all.
anything, but there's some people that are, it's like, I love, you know, mechanical engineer, this type of engineering, and just a job that I can find it
There
will
you
be
go.
fulfilling and satisfying. But there's something for me where I was like, I don't think I'll be satisfied,
Yes.
you know, if I'm not able to pursue this passion of mine. And I feel like that can be, it can feel like it's like a harder path to take, but you can't shy away from it. You know, if,
No.
you know, you can accept yourself and accept that reality about you that I need to be passionate about this, and that's what's going to excite me.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely feels scary in the beginning. Like for me, whenever I decided like, you know, I basically learned about acoustic engineering and got just like a little bit along the process of, you know, getting to where I would have a job. Like, I think after I learned about acoustic engineering, I might not have talked to Gavin until a few months later. By that time, that like I needed to switch my major basically immediately to be able to do this path. So once I switched my major, it was like, here we go, I'm on the path. And it was definitely scary because like we're talking about, it's not as direct of a path. But I think that, you know, for some people, and there's literally nothing wrong with it, but for some people, they don't need to be involved with their passion at work, you know, and maybe they have another passion, but their work can be their work and their passion can be their passion. There's a lot of different ways to live life and get what you want out of it. But I knew that for me, I was not going to be okay just doing something that was not at least somewhat tied to music. I never thought I would be able to get this close because not only do I love making music, but like I've built like 2 or 3 of my own studios, and before I even knew about this, and that process was always super fun to me. But yeah, I guess in a nutshell, if you feel like there's something that you need to do, and you're one of those people that needs to have their passion to be somewhat part of their life and their work, I think making that jump and accepting that even if you're not going to be making as much money as maybe another job opportunity right away, at least, you're going to be so much happier and so much fulfilled if you do that. And if you have enough drive and enough enthusiasm, even if it's scary at first, you can make it happen, and you'll surprise yourself with how well things will turn out if you take the leap.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a lot of fun. We'd love to hear about from all of our audience. What are you passionate about? And kind of, if you want to leave a comment, tell us what you're passionate about and what obstacles you might be facing in that or how you're pursuing it. That'd be awesome to hear from you. And thanks again for being a part of the S.O.U.N.D Project.